You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
Okay, if you're one of the strategic minds out there building and shipping products today, I've got a number for you. And, well, it's probably going to land right in the pit of your stomach. It comes from this big survey. Over 1,000 product managers. Get this. 84% of product managers are convinced their products are going to fail.
Wow.
Yeah. That's not just pessimism, right? That feels like an almost universal expectation of doom in the very role that's supposed to be driving all the growth.
It sounds absolutely horrifying, I know, but maybe it's a necessary reality check. The pressure is just immense, and honestly, it's completely justified when you actually look at the economics.
How so?
Well, we're talking about an environment where getting to serious scale, hitting like $10 million or even $25 million in annual recurring revenue, that's basically an outlier event.
Really? That rare?
Oh, yeah. The odds are seriously stacked against you. And it varies wildly, depending on your market, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, success. That's the rarity, not the norm.
Okay, let's unpack this then. If you, listening right now, are feeling like you're in that 84%, our mission today is, well, it's pretty clear. We need to figure out how the high-performing teams are actually coping with this stress. What strategic blueprints, actually deliver results. And crucially, how is this wave of AI fundamentally restructuring our ability to execute and maybe even changing our core capabilities as product people?
That's the core question.
Right. So if success is that rare and the pressure is that high, doesn't that mean the natural state for most organizations is just chaos?
Pretty much, yeah.
So if we're trying to structure ourselves for maximum impact, how on earth do we balance that need for speed, ship constantly, always be shipping, with a desperate need for strategic focus?
Well, what's fascinating here, I think, is that the most successful organizations, they don't actually eliminate that tension. They kind of formalize it.
Formalize the tension.
But they embrace a sort of creative conflict. They make sure they have 4 critical archetypes working together. If you don't have these 4, strategy is basically dead on arrival.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What are the 4?
All right, so first, you need the architect. This is the person or function obsessed with building durable structure, repeatable processes.
Okay, makes sense. Structure.
Then you need the strategist. This is the one who can adapt really quickly when the market shifts, pivot on a dime if needed.
Right, the fast mover.
Third, the opportunist. Always driving discovery, sniffing out those unexpected wins, the adjacent possibilities.
Plan explored. Okay.
And finally, number 4, the perfectionist. This role safeguards quality, protects standards, makes sure you don't just, burn your customer base shipping things too fast.
But hang on, that sounds like a recipe for constant infighting. I mean, if the architect is all about structure, aren't they just going to choke out the opportunist? Who needs flexibility for discovery?
Exactly. That's the point.
The conflict is the point.
It is. The friction is the feature, you could say. If you have all 4 roles aligned, you can actually debate which priority to follow. But if you only have 3, say, you're missing the perfectionist, well, then you just ship garbage faster.
Okay, fair point.
You need that dynamic tension to force high-quality decisions. It prevents one perspective from totally dominating.
Okay, that makes sense. But here's where it gets really tactical, I think. What if you're a team leader, running the day-to-day, and you realize the strategic direction from above, the North Star you're supposed to be following, it's just invisible.
Yeah. That's
the leader must have some kind of strategy, right? But they just haven't articulated it. What do you do then?
That is maybe the most paralyzing environment to work in. It really is. But what we're finding is that it's rarely a complete strategy vacuum.
Okay.
Leaders often have the general direction sort of in their heads. They just haven't done the hard work of actually articulating it clearly, writing it down, communicating it.
So, wait. Are we saying the burden is on the employee to somehow magically draw out the strategy? Not on the senior leader to, lead and define it.
Right.
Isn't that just rewarding poor leadership? That sounds like a ton of upward effort.
It feels like that, doesn't it? It really does. But look, if you wait for perfection from leadership, you might be waiting forever. And you'll still be stuck in that 84% worrying about failure.
True. So what's the alternative?
The solution isn't confrontation, usually. It's more about thoughtful, proactive influence. You need to approach the leader, maybe with some really targeted questions.
Like what?
Like, based on our last conversation, it sounds like you're prioritizing X, is that right? Or, I drafted what I think our core objectives are for the next 6 months. Could you take a look?
So you kind of drafted for them?
Essentially, yeah. You draft what you hear them say, put that input into a clear, refined plan. Then you hand it back and ask them to refine it and own it. You do maybe 80% of the work. They just need to lend their authority and final input. That's how you create clarity when it's missing.
Okay, proactive drafting. Got it. And, before we move on from clarity, we should probably note this isn't just a digital company problem, right?
Oh, absolutely not. Good point.
For a non-digital business, maybe a manufacturer or a logistics company trying to become more product-centric, that means something way more complicated than just like spinning up an app.
Totally. When you're not selling software, product centricity means linking teams, strategy, and outcomes across this really complex, often physical ecosystem.
Yeah.
You've got multiple business units, legacy processes.
Yeah.
You can't just simplify the problem down to a single engineering backlog. You have to embrace that complexity, but still find ways to link every decision back to measurable, shared outcomes. It's a much bigger coordination challenge.
Okay, so that transition from organizational structure to actual tangible outcomes, that brings us right to the moment of truth, doesn't it? Evaluating ideas.
Yep.
If 84% of products fail, that high-stakes environment means teams are, understandably, terrified to make what the research called blind bets.
Exactly. Blind bets kill you.
So we need a robust filter. And that's where this total impact matrix comes in.
That's right. This matrix is pretty essential because, look, the pressure to ship constantly often leads teams to prioritize, well, the loudest internal voice.
Or the shiniest new object.
Or the idea that sounds quickest to build, right? Not necessarily the most impactful idea. The matrix is basically a visualization tool. It forces teams to map how product ideas actually create value.
Okay, map value.
How?
Not just value for the user, that's important obviously, but specifically for the business too.
Yeah, the dual focus.
Yes. So how does it prevent that blind bet? It forces teams to confront a harsh reality, ideally early on. Most ideas deliver very little, or sometimes even negative impact.
Ouch.
Negative impact.
It happens. The matrix requires you to balance customer needs, like solving a real pain point against concrete business objectives. Think revenue, retention, maybe cost reduction.
So you plot ideas on this grid.
Exactly. 2 axes. Customer value, business value. If you can't map an idea to meaningful impact on both axes, it's probably a blind bet. And it gets filtered out, or at least seriously questioned. It turns idea generation from this hopeful, fuzzy thing into a more rigorous, weighted calculation.
Okay, rigor and calculation. Speaking of which, let's talk about the engine that is just changing the product calculus for literally everyone. AI.
The big one.
Yeah. We're seeing these massive gains in productivity, sure. But there seems to be a serious trade-off happening too, right? In the quality of insight, maybe even in human skill.
That trade-off is, I think, the absolute core tension right now, and the warning signs. They're flashing brightest around customer insight.
How so?
We're seeing many, many teams using AI to take the ultimate shortcut, handling interview synthesis.
Digesting transcripts.
Yeah. Feed it hours of customer interviews, it spits out bullet points. Super efficient, right?
Sounds tempting.
Incredibly tempting. But this reliance, it risks eroding empathy. Real empathy and context. You lose the nuance of how the customer said something, the hesitant tone, the body language if it was video, all those critical non-textual data points that inform genuine product strategy.
That loss of nuance. It connects directly to that idea we've actually touched on before here on The Vocal Technologist, the concept of the lesser apes.
Ah, yes, the lesser apes. Good callback.
Yeah, the idea being if AI eases our cognitive load too much, if it handles all the heavy lifting of, say, deep reading, synthesis, making connections, do we risk losing that, what was the term? Feral intellect?
Feral intellect.
Those innate human skills, right. That ability to connect seemingly unrelated dots, that only really gets nourished by deep, deliberate mental effort. If AI makes us super productive, but simultaneously dulls our ability to truly think, well, that feels like a much bigger long-term strategic problem.
That cognitive risk is absolutely real, and it's precisely why the most effective approach we're seeing is human-led synthesis. Yeah. AI should be a partner. It can organize notes brilliantly, surface potential patterns, accelerate that initial learning curve, but the human must retain ownership of the context and, crucially, the aha moment, the real insight.
So AI assists, but doesn't replace the thinking.
Exactly. You need that human depth to build real strategy, not just the speed to summarize transcripts.
Okay, but we can't ignore the benefits driving all this adoption, right? AI is transforming the product pipeline itself in some pretty amazing ways.
Oh, undeniably. Take customer feedback clarity, for instance. Product leaders are just drowning in fragmented feedback, right? Support tickets, emails, NPS comments, Slack messages, surveys.
It's everywhere.
It's overwhelming. Tools are now using AI to turn that fire hose of information into actually actionable insights, helping product leaders finally connect the dots and lead with some genuine clarity, not just guesswork based on the latest complaint.
That's a huge operational win.
Massive. And then there's the really dramatic change. Go-to-market channels. This is where the actual dollars are being made or lost now with AI. We saw this case study setting a company called Docebo. They managed to grow their AI-sourced leads, not just clicks or conversions, but actual qualified leads by an astounding 429%.
Hold on. 429%.
Yeah, 429%.
From AI-sourced leads, that number,
Yeah.
that should make every single product leader listening just stop what you're doing right now. How?
Yeah.
How did they possibly achieve that?
They did it by basically treating large language models like ChatGPT and others as a reliable, predictable pipeline source.
So not just for content creation, but lead gen.
Directly for lead gen. They optimize their content specifically for late funnel, high intent discovery within these AI models. Lots of focus on automation too. It's no longer just about optimizing for Google search results. It's about optimizing for the AI's consumption and its eventual recommendation to a user asking a relevant question.
Wow, that's a completely transformative shift in how you acquire customers.
It really is. Changes the entire playing field.
Okay, so that kind of exponential growth, it naturally raises a pretty important, maybe slightly scary question. If I'm running a smaller startup, how do I possibly survive? How do we compete in a world where these giants, like OpenAI or Google or Anthropic, are expanding their capabilities exponentially, building platforms that seem like they could consume everything?
Yeah, that's the existential question for a lot of folks right now. And the answer is, you absolutely cannot try to outmuscle them on raw capability or compute power. That's a losing game.
So what do you do?
Successful startups, the ones thriving in this environment, they're differentiating in basically 5 precise ways.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, they have to have a genuinely sharper, maybe non-obvious strategic focus, something the big guys overlook. Second, they deliver a much richer, more bespoke, maybe more opinionated user experience.
Right, better UX.
Third, they go for extreme niche depth. Find a vertical or a problem space where the big platforms just aren't interested or can't get the nuance right. Fourth, critically, they often rely on proprietary data, data that the large models simply haven't ingested yet or can't access.
The data moat.
Exactly. And finally, number 5, they must build real defensibility. And that means much, much more than just putting a thin API wrapper around a core LLM and calling it a product. That's not defensible long-term.
Sharper focus, richer UX, niche depth, proprietary data, and real defensibility.
Got it. Okay, so we've covered the high-level strategy, the disruptive tech. Now we need to look internally at protecting, maybe, the most critical, non-renewable resource we all have.
Time and attention.
Exactly. Time and attention. Because even with the clearest strategy in the world, execution just falls apart if we get caught in that ubiquitous meeting trap.
The meeting trap, yes. It's such a beautiful euphemism, isn't it?
It is.
For when collaboration stops being productive and basically becomes outright procrastination.
Ouch. Is that what we're doing? Sometimes. We use meetings often unconsciously to delay the really hard work, the work of thinking, writing, and maybe most importantly, deciding. You know, that weekly status check meeting. Often it's just a comfortable way to avoid making the actual decision that needs to be made.
Okay, guilty as charged sometimes. So for the listener who really wants to reclaim their strategic momentum, get out of that 84% failure cohort. What's the actionable framework? Because let's be real, most of us can't just declare no more meetings tomorrow.
No, you can't. Discipline is really the only cure here, and it takes conscious effort. First, you absolutely must religiously protect your deep work time. For most people, that means blocking out mornings. No meetings before lunch, if possible.
Protect mornings, okay.
Second, work asynchronously by default. Use documents, use Slack threads, use email. Save synchronous time for things that truly require it. It saves everyone countless hours.
Async first.
Right. Third, only allow meetings if they are strictly tied to a defined decision that needs to be made, and there's a clear owner identified right there on the invitation. No decision, no meeting.
Clear purpose, clear owner.
Fourth, push all those routine check-ins, the status updates, push them to the late afternoon. Reserve your peak mental energy hours for actual creation, for the deep work.
Afternoon for updates. Makes sense.
And finally, the big one, Institute one meeting-free day every single week. A whole day dedicated to focus. It sounds radical, but it's incredibly effective.
5 concrete steps. Protect mornings, async default, meetings for decisions only, updates in the afternoon, and 1 meeting-free day. That's actually doable.
It is. It just takes commitment.
And it's not just individual contributors, right? Even managers are changing how they operate. We're seeing this shift where AI is helping engineering leaders, for example, focus less on just outcomes, which can be misleading or laggy, and more on process quality.
That's a really interesting development.
Yeah, it's allowing some managers to actually get back into the code base a bit, or at least thrive on deep data context from their systems, making much better, less emotionally driven decisions because they understand the how, not just the what.
Better process leads to better outcomes eventually. And it also, that technological acceleration, it underscores a hidden risk, doesn't it? An operational and compliance risk we probably shouldn't ignore.
Which is?
While we're focusing on all the positive uses, we know from surveys that roughly 30% of employees are secretly using unsanctioned AI tools.
30%.
Yeah.
Secretly.
Yep. Shadow AI. They're using them to boost their productivity, which sounds good, but it creates potentially significant data privacy risks, security holes, compliance issues.
Right, because the company doesn't know what data is going into these tools.
Exactly. So even if you want to encourage AI usage, you absolutely need a clear governance framework in place to manage that risk. You can't just let it run wild.
Okay, so stepping back, if we try to summarize this whole environment we've been discussing, it really is a masterclass in tension, isn't it?
Absolutely. Constant tension.
You've got this staggering statistic, 84% of product leaders anticipating failure. But that's countered by these robust strategic frameworks, like those 4 organizational archetypes you mentioned, that actually force necessary healthy conflict between, say, standards and discovery.
Right. Managing the paradox.
Yeah. And then you layer on top this incredibly powerful dual-edged sword of AI. On one hand, it's potentially eroding empathy and deep thinking. But on the other hand, it's driving things like 429% lead growth.
It's both terrifying and exhilarating all at once.
It really is. So if we connect all this to the really big picture, what's the ultimate consequence? What's the long-term effect of this hyper-accelerated, prediction-obsessed product environment?
Well, I think it's doing more than just changing business. It might actually be redefining how our society creates value, fundamentally. The ultimate consequence, arguably, of this intense focus on forecasting, metrics, predicting what's next, could be the rise of prediction itself.
Prediction, as
the successor, perhaps, to postmodernism.
Whoa. Okay, tell us more about that framework. Prediction replacing postmodernism.
Think about it. Historically, maybe through the late 20th century, a lot of cultural and economic value was created through interpretation, analyzing the world, deconstructing it, applying meaning. Think critical theory, artistic interpretation, etc.
Okay, interpreting the past and present.
Right. But today, value is increasingly created by contributing information, building products, generating insights that help us forecast what comes next, whether that's predicting customer churn or market volatility or the next technological shift or even election outcomes.
It's all about the forecast.
It seems to be shifting that way. Society's focus seems to be moving from primarily interpreting the world we have to relentlessly predicting the world that's coming and building based on those predictions.
That's a phenomenal framework to leave everyone listening with today. If our economy, maybe even our cultural focus, is now increasingly defined by prediction, then the question for you, the listener, is, how does your current work, that daily effort, that disciplined decision-making we talked about, the meetings you choose to attend or decline, how does it contribute to forecasting the next big wave?
Yeah, what are you helping predict?
And maybe more importantly, what deliberate, focused effort, what feral intellect are you actively protecting today to ensure you're not just reacting, but doing the real strategic thinking required to shape that future?
Deep thoughts to end on.
Definitely something to mull over.
Oh.
Until next time, keep shaping that clarity.
Spoken Tech for your ears.